Socialism has completely wrecked Venezuela. What's the latest in that country? What's in the news with stories on Steven Segal, collateral damage, the cost of war, ride-sharing regulations, and false arrests? And finally, a new Ask Me Anything segment where I answer your burning questions. This episode is brought to you by ZenCash, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by Free Talk Live, providing you with fresh, pro-liberty content 7 days a week on more than 180 radio stations around the country.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that was the home of Samuel Shelburne, the first Attorney General of the United States in 1789, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at the Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 101, Socialism in Venezuela. And it's Thursday, August 16th, 2018, when there have already been more than 720 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $21,343,600,000,000 in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. I haven't talked much about the socialist issues in Venezuela on this show, and there is no excuse for that, especially when it's a perfect example of the evils of socialism, and it's only 1,500 miles from U.S. shores. With hyperinflation of the Venezuelan bolivar making the money worthless, literally, massive food shortages and long lines of people trying to buy what little food there is, oil output of the country's socialized oil companies dropping dramatically, increasing rates of medicine and medical equipment not being available, huge increases in crime, violence, and poverty, and the shutting down of opposition political parties, Venezuela is in a crisis. The people have been protesting, but they are getting nowhere, of course, especially because the government owns all the guns. Venezuela implemented sweeping gun control in 2012. Under the law, only the army, police, and certain groups like security companies are able to buy arms from the state-owned weapons manufacturer and importer. This gives the people little ability to truly stand up against the totalitarian government they find themselves under. Their choices are essentially to shut up, take it, and slowly starve, or leave. Well, even though there are many who are fleeing, up to 800 every single day sneak into Brazil alone, there are still many who either don't choose that option or can't for whatever reason. For those, every day brings some new bullshit from the government. Take this latest bit of news, for example. Venezuela last week began a census of car owners, a move the socialist government says will help determine a rational use of fuel, but critics warn could lead to rationing in the crisis-stricken OPEC nation. Fuel shortages are already frequent in Venezuela, where a fifth straight year of a brutal recession has led to refinery outages and steep falls in oil production. President Nicolas Maduro over the weekend said Venezuela needed rational gas use, and that a census was the answer to that. One top party official also proposed increasing the price of highly subsidized fuel, the world's cheapest, when you can fucking get it. Details of the government's plans are scarce, and the Information Ministry did not respond to a request for comment, but Venezuelans have fretted that the census could be setting the stage for more restrictive gasoline sales. Taxi driver Juan Suarez, 45, who had spent 6 hours in line for the census in downtown Caracas, said, "I am registering myself because I am scared that if I am not in the census, they will not sell gasoline to me." He and others on the line said they also hoped that being registered could grant them access to cheaper gas. Under the census, car owners had to use a government-issued Fatherland card to register details of their vehicle and gasoline consumption online. They then had to line up at government offices to scan the card. Venezuelans who do not have the card cannot participate. Anti-Maduro politicians say that marginalizes government opponents who have refused to get the card the government now uses in the distribution of everything from food to bonuses. What the fuck is this Fatherland card bullshit? Talk about papers, please. Opposition lawmaker and economist Jose Guerra tweeted, "They ruined Venezuela. They destroyed state oil company PDVSA, and now they are trying to ration fuel sales through the fatherland card in the country with the biggest oil reserves of the Western Hemisphere. Say no to this blackmail." All of this begs the question, why the fuck is socialism and democratic socialism all the rage in the U.S. today? We have numerous examples of the failure of socialism throughout history, enough to fill a ton of books. And now we have a modern example right before our eyes, not far from the U.S., which is in the news constantly. How are socialism and those who preach it on the rise in this country? I would chalk it up to the foolishness of youth if I could, but fuck, the godfather of socialism in the U.S., Bernie Sanders, is 76 years old. Okay, so he's always been a socialist and never had a real job in his life, I get it. So that means he doesn't understand how the world really works, but come on. You know I'm going to say it. I have to say it. I can't help it. Fuck socialism in the neck.
Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
Are those dry, boring, run-of-the-mill political talk shows putting you to sleep on your commute or at work? Are you ready for some fun?
Look no further. Blast Off with Johnny Rocket is a Seattle-based podcast expressing viewpoints of free markets, voluntary exchange, badass music, wicked banner, and of course, drinking.
The Blast Off doesn't shy from the truth, but always brings the party.
Let's rock and roll, Raylene.
Bring it on, Johnny.
You can check us out at thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Again, that's thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction.
And now I'm crying over you.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In Moving On Up news, actor Steven Segal has been appointed by Russia as a special envoy to the U.S. I can't make this shit up. The action movie star Steven Segal has played a former CIA agent, a hitman, and a killer of criminals. On Saturday, Russian officials tapped him for another role, special representative to improve relations between the United States and Russia. The Russian Foreign Ministry announced the appointment on Facebook, saying his mission will include promoting relations between Russia and the United States in the humanitarian field, including cooperation in culture, arts, public, and youth exchanges. The position is unpaid, said Russian officials, who compared the role to that of a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador, a distinguished volunteer who calls attention to the work of the United Nations. Man, does this not ever sound like Dennis Rodman in North Korea? In a tweet on Sunday, Mr. Segal said that he was deeply humbled and honored by the appointment. He said, "I hope we can strive for peace, harmony, and positive results in the world. I take this honor very seriously." Well, I'm glad someone is taking this seriously. Since when do horrible 80s actors become people we should be paying attention to? Do I need to remind anyone about Kirk Cameron's Crocoduck? In collateral damage news, after nearly 2 decades of killing civilian brown people in the Middle East, the U.S. is now going to create processes for civilian casualty reporting. Passed on Wednesday, the 2019 National Defense Authorization Act included a lot of details above and beyond just spending $716 billion on the military. 2 provisions were in the final bill focused on dealing with civilian casualties in America's assorted wars. The language requires the Pentagon to create a high-ranking civilian post, at or above the level of an Assistant Secretary of Defense, who would be in charge of establishing uniform processes on recording strikes, investigating reported casualties, reducing risks to civilians, and establishing a uniform standard for both acknowledging responsibility and offering payments for the families of victims. The other provision is in addition to the 2018 NDAA's demand for civilian casualty reporting. This new version clarifies the previous year's language, noting that the Pentagon never complied with the initial requirements, giving a report that was both late and incomplete. While the 2019 provisions go much deeper in trying to provide very clear requirements, the problem with last year's version raises the very likely possibility that the Pentagon is just going to ignore the language again. Of course they will. No one has a bigger interest in lying about the true number of civilian deaths than the Pentagon does. The creation of a high-ranking civilian post seems aimed at that, with an eye toward having someone to complain to when the reports don't arrive. The Pentagon's increasingly secretive attitude in recent months and their well-established policy of drastically underreporting civilian deaths suggests Congress is going to have to go to great efforts to get such reports submitted. One cryptocurrency project that I'm most excited about right now is ZenCash, with privacy, anonymity, and security done right. You can read all about ZenCash at thelavaflow.com/zen. Now look, I've read a ton of white papers on crypto, and this is the first one I've read that mentioned voluntary and voluntarist not once but 7 times. These are our people, and they are on the right track to mix great technology, excellent marketing, and awesome uses for their product. These guys get it, and they understand what crypto is all about. Now this is a project, guys, that I believe in 100%. So much so that I have staked some of my own Zen to run a secure node on their network. So don't miss out on checking out this awesome project at thelavaflow.com/zen. In War is the Health of the State news, American taxpayers have spent $1.46 trillion on wars abroad since September 11, 2001. This means we've spent $250 million every single day for the past 16 years on the war on terror. The Department of Defense periodically releases a cost of war report. The newly released version, obtained by the Federation of American Scientists' Secrecy News blog, covers the time from the September 11th terrorist attacks through mid-2017. The Afghanistan War from 2001 to 2014 and Iraq War from 2003 to 2011 account for the bulk of expenses, more than $1.3 trillion. The continuing presence in Afghanistan and aerial anti-ISIS operations in Iraq and Syria since 2014 have cost a combined $120 billion. And as you can expect with information from the government, the numbers they released only tell a small portion of the story. The report's costs include only direct war-related expenses, such as operating and maintaining bases, procuring equipment, and paying for and feeding troops. It most notably does not include the expense of veterans' benefits for troops who serve in these wars or the intelligence community's expenses related to the global war on terror. A 2011 paper from Harvard Kennedy School professor Linda Belms estimated the cost of veterans' benefits as $600 billion to $1 trillion over the next 40 years. That number was based on 482,364 veterans who were receiving compensation for disability connected to service as of February 2011. Since then, the number of veterans receiving compensation for service-related disability has increased drastically. According to the Congressional Research Service, the only war in U.S. history to cost more than the global war on terror was World War II, at more than $4.1 trillion in present dollars. Direct war-related expenses from the Vietnam War cost $738 billion in today's dollars. No surprise here. When you're at a constant war footing for nearly 2 decades, it adds up. Maybe we should give peace a chance. In I Can't Drive 55 news, New York City has decided to pump the brakes on ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft by passing tight first-in-the-nation regulations that both limit the number of drivers allowed in the city and empower regulators to pass more restrictions in the coming months and years. Chief among these new regulations is a year-long freeze on the issuance of new licenses for rideshare drivers, during which time regulators at the city's Taxi and Limousine Commission will study every dimension of the industry, including how much drivers make, vehicle utilization rates, the percentage of time Ubers spend with a passenger in the back, and the impact of these services on traffic congestion. Once the study is completed, the Commission will be allowed to set caps on the number of rideshare vehicles allowed on city streets, set utilization targets for rideshare fleets, regulate where these cars can pick up and drop off passengers, and establish minimum hourly pay for drivers. In short, the regulatory breathing room that has allowed Uber and Lyft to grow into the transportation dynamos they are today is coming to an end in New York City. According to rideshare companies themselves, this means dire consequences for riders, drivers, and overall mobility in the city. Lyft Vice President of Public Policy Joseph Okpaku said in response to Wednesday's vote, "These sweeping cuts to transportation will bring New Yorkers back to an era of struggling to get a ride, particularly for communities of color and in the outer boroughs." Abso-fucking-lutely. I was in New York City a few months ago with the family, and the fastest way to get to A and B was, hands down, every time an Uber. Every single time. But of course, when something is working for people, the government has to step in and fuck it up, because that's what they do best. And in a moment of what the actual fuck, Mayor Bill de Blasio said, "Our city is directly confronting a crisis that is driving working New Yorkers into poverty and our streets into gridlock. I'm confident we are getting the balance right to address plummeting driver pay and rising congestion without harming service." Government, historically, never gets this shit right. You know what does get this shit right? The free fucking market. Why? Because if you oversaturate an area with ride-sharing, then all the drivers start to see their profits drop. This will cause many drivers to leave the market and find other work, therefore creating a true balance in the market. Some group of fucking bureaucrats from up on high will never have the prescience or power of the free market.
One of the largest reaching liberty programs today is Free Talk Live, with a 3-hour radio program 7 nights a week on more than 180 radio stations across the country. They are so influential on talk radio that they are the number 27 radio program in the country, according to Talkers Magazine. They also have a daily podcast that's been voted Best Political Podcast 5 times by podcastawards.com. The hosts of Free Talk Live are street preachers for the ideas of liberty. They take the message of peace, liberty, and cryptocurrency to the masses on the radio, where they are not preaching to the choir. You can listen via podcast or live via audio streaming or the Twitch or YouTube channels at freetalklive.com. I listen to their podcast myself every single morning when I get up to get a fresh perspective on news and very, very strong libertarian perspectives. Make sure to add them to your feed at freetalklive.com.
In bad boy news, a Biscayne Park cop admits to framing 2 black men as Florida's town's false arrest scandal widens. The federal investigation into a handful of former Biscayne Park police officers accused of framing innocent people widened this week when another cop was accused of falsifying arrest warrants for 2 men at the direction of the police chief. Guillermo Ravello, who was fired from the force earlier this year, pleaded guilty Thursday in Miami federal court to a conspiracy charge that he violated the rights of the falsely accused men. One charged with a pair of home break-ins in 2013, the other with 5 vehicle burglaries the following year. The charges against the 2 men, both black, were eventually dropped. Ravello, 37, also pleaded guilty to using excessive force during a Biscayne Park traffic stop in 2013 when he struck a handcuffed suspect in the face with his fist. Ravello's admission to the false police arrests intensifies the spotlight on former Biscayne Park police chief, Raimundo Aticiano. Aticiano, the 52-year-old, was indicted in June along with 2 other former police officers, Raul Fernandez and Charlie Daoub, on a conspiracy charge of pinning 4 unsolved home burglaries on a 16-year-old so the chief could claim a perfect clearance rate on property crimes in 2013. That teen was also black. The town reported clearing 29 of 30 burglary cases during Aticiano's tenure as chief in 2013 and 2014. But now that seemingly stellar record, once touted by Aticiano to town leaders, has been shattered by the reality that at least 11 of those cases were based on false arrest records, according to federal authorities. One cop said in an internal probe ordered in 2014, "If they have burglaries that are open cases that are not solved yet, if you see anybody black walking through our streets and they have somewhat of a record, arrest them so we can pin them for all the burglaries." They were basically doing this to have a 100% clearance rate for the city. In a report from that probe, 4 officers, a third of the small police force, told an outside investigator they were under marching orders to file the bogus claims to improve the department's crime stats. While only 1 officer specifically mentioned targeting blacks, former Biscayne Park village manager Heidi Shafran, who ordered the investigation after receiving a string of letters from disgruntled officers, said the message seemed clear for cops on the streets. Look, we know this sort of thing has been going on for a very long time, and it's only gotten worse. The only good news out of this is that we're finally starting to see it unravel in lots of places because people are becoming more aware of what's going on. It's disgusting to put innocent people in jail for crimes they didn't commit. It is horrible. It is criminal. But there can be a silver lining. At least we are seeing more and more cases under the light. Cockroaches hate the light.
Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
Ask me anything. Roger will answer your questions about, well, anything. Do you have a question for Roger? Email ama@thelavaflow.com or add your question to the latest AMA thread in the Pax Libertas Productions Facebook group.
It's been a few weeks since I've done an AMA segment, so I'm going to rectify that right now. Rob G. asks, so how do we protect seasteaders from these violent governments? My question back is, what keeps Canada from invading the U.S.? Other than Canada being so polite that they would likely ask permission to invade before they actually invaded, what mainly stops them is an overwhelming military force. It's the same thing that protects Israel, a completely isolated small country that's completely surrounded on all sides by enemies. So who would pay for this military force to protect a seastead? The same people who are paying for the U.S. or Israel military, the people who live there. The main difference, though, is that it would not be paid for by force. It would be paid for voluntarily. If you want your portion of the seastead, the part that you own, to be protected from fire, flood, or other disasters, you would buy insurance. That same insurance company could, and likely would, offer insurance against war damage. And to protect the insurance company's investment, it would be prudent for them to build a defensive military force to protect your property from war damage. Keep in mind, this is just one possible scenario. There could be any number of other scenarios the free market could come up with to solve this problem. We don't have to have all the answers, and there's no way we ever could predict what the free market would come up with. What's important is that military protection paid for by force and violence, i.e. tax money, is no guarantee against invasion either. Just ask Syria or Afghanistan or Iraq. Thanks for the question, Rob. Gene asks, in an anarcho-capitalist society, if a business owner makes a huge mistake, example, bungee jumping accident, scuba diving accident, boat tour accident, who knows, and kills a consumer with few witnesses, what is the regulatory body that would keep this business owner from simply changing the name of the business and continue on selling the same service? I heard that this is a problem with boat tours in the Philippines. If someone dies from an error of the captain, they simply change the name of the company so you don't hear about their previous record. Gene, I think this could be easily handled in a free market economy by companies like Consumer Reports or the Better Business Bureau. Even in our current non-voluntary society, there are lots of companies that watch businesses and report on their issues, and even certify their products or services, like Underwater Laboratories does. I would expect to see the numbers of this sort of company grow quite a lot in a true voluntarist society. They would all be trying to outcompete each other. Would there be some companies, though, that got away with something like this? Sure. But there are already tons that get away with it in our current non-voluntary society. And sadly, most times they're protected by the government through LLCs or corporations or the like, so no one is actually punished for wrongdoing. They just move on to their next venture without issue. And even if some of these issues still get by, I prefer Thomas Jefferson's quote on this. I would rather be exposed to the inconveniences attending too much liberty than those attending too small a degree of it. John A. asks, Roger, what do you think about the LP Mises Caucus? Specifically, do you believe it is within voluntarist principles to use the party to spread the message of liberty? I don't know if you've talked about this yet, and I hope to hear your thoughts on it. I love your show. Keep up the good work. Thanks, John. Look, I have respect for the Mises Caucus and what they're attempting to do and everybody behind it. I get it. I was there once. I wanted to see the LP invoke true voluntarist, libertarian principles. Then I got shit on with the nominations of Bob Barr and Gary Johnson and Bill Weld and resigned from the party in disgust. I've given up trying. I wasted my time. I gave true blood, sweat, tears, and money to that party to see it pissed away on lukewarm, wannabe libertarian candidates. I truly believe the Mises Caucus is wasting its time on this because I really don't believe there are enough voluntarists left in the LP to make that shift back, if there ever were enough. And it really makes me sad to see people like Tom Woods and Stephen Kinsella jump into the party trying to change it from the inside. That's what the LP has been trying to do in American politics for nearly 5 decades, and the LP keeps getting shut down at every turn. I expect the same thing will happen to the Mises Caucus and their new star-studded membership. I hope I'm wrong. Truly, I do. And I would love to see me proven wrong. I would love to see the LP put up a real libertarian for president in 2020. I would love to see the LP get back to their founding and their statement of principles. I would love to see a resurgence in voluntarism in the LP to use the party as what it is best used for, an educational tool. Look, we know the LP is never going to be relevant in U.S. politics as long as the R's and the D's have control of the way things are done in elections and politics, period. But the LP has a use even without trying to win elections and being electorally relevant. It is the education and starting off point for the larger libertarian movement. The LP is where many voluntarists got their start, including me. But we need to get the party back to that place, where it is taking those politically curious libertarians as input and spitting out voluntarists as output, like it did with me. When that day comes, I will proudly rejoin the LP and help them in this endeavor. Until then, I've pissed away more than my fair share of time and money into that party. Thank you for all your questions, guys. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite decorator, Jessica, for her help on this show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on the show, go to thelavaflow.com/101. I have no new supporters this week, but thanks to my awesome supporters, I am at $290 per episode, or 58% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Guys, thank you so much for all your support. As a reminder, when I hit this next goal, I'm going to be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour, and I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you. So add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting right now. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I also have a new Apple podcast review this week. Barry K108 said, "Of all the libertarian shows, this is number 1. In half an hour, you'll get all the current events that matter for the entire week, so you can spend the rest of your commute time listening to Mises.com's audiobook feed." Thanks, Barry. That is high praise, and it is so appreciated. So if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't done it yet, can you guys please help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.